legislative report. Property taxes have been plaguing residents of Pennsylvania for decades, but a true solution to the problem has been hard to find. You, the voters, have moved us one step closer with the approval of a ballot question that amended our Constitution. And here to give us background on the issue and discuss the next steps are State Representatives Rosemary Brown of Monroe and Pike counties, Marcia Hahn of Northampton, and Doyle Heffley of Carbon County. Welcome to all of you. So glad you could be here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We want to start, before we get to the proposal that you guys have that would be a solution, we want to kind of lay the groundwork of the issue as it is. And what do you hear from your constituents? Representative Brown?
For us, the property tax issue is the #1 issue in the district that I represent. And I think what you find in Monroe County and parts of Pike County is that the level, how high the bill is really what is concerning residents. So people are willing to pay taxes. They definitely find education a priority and of importance and understand that they need to help fund that for society. But how high that bill is extremely detrimental to how they live their life. And it's very high in our counties. So what we're trying to do is look at ways to make this more reasonable, if not eliminate it by changing the whole system. So for us, it's the #1 issue and something that I will always continue to fight to try to help the area.
Representative Hahn, is it the same in your district?
It is, and I think as we have constituents coming into the office, and it used to be more just seniors that would come in because they have to decide if they're going to use their money to pay their property taxes, to buy prescriptions, to buy food, you know, some of the staples that they just need to exist. And when you lose your home, you've worked your whole life, you've been in a home for 40 years, and now you find you can't pay that bill. And in some cases, if you would put in a monthly increment away for property taxes, it's almost like a mortgage payment. So they're on fixed income, sometimes their spouses have passed, so now they're on a single income, and they're really struggling. But now we're seeing it more in even the younger families. You know, I think if we could do something as far as property taxes are concerned, when you look at the number of homes that people own and occupy, like we could expand on that if they didn't have to worry about what that property tax bill was going to do. And I think people that get that bill in the mail in August, they all come to us and say, like, that's when it becomes an even bigger issue because of the school tax. And we're talking about the school tax. You know, there's other county and local taxes, but the school tax is the big bill that we need to really look at and do something and find a way to help these families so they can keep their homes or younger families to buy homes.
Representative Heffley, what do you hear from your folks
definitely.
back home?
I mean, I hear it everywhere, whether my wife and I are grocery shopping or whether I'm getting gas at the gas station or at a ball game. Always, you know, the #1 issue, the question I hear is about property taxes. And there's been a lot of proposals in the past to try to reduce that. I mean, the Jim Thorpe School District, for example, has I think it's the 3rd highest right now percentage of household income that goes to property taxes. And I think, Rosemary, you have the 2 of the highest in East Stroudsburg and Mount Pocono. So, and there's a lot. I mean, some people think, you know, that $1,200 a year property taxes is too high, and there's other people that are paying $15,000 or $20,000 a year property taxes. So it really it runs across everything. So younger families are choosing to not move into certain areas because of those property taxes. So I definitely, you know, and we live it. I mean, we all pay those property taxes in that area, and it's not an equitable tax, and we're trying to come up with solutions to make it a more equitable tax, or give the relief to the homeowners. People need to be able to pay taxes that they can afford. And when the property tax was set up to fund education, we were an agrarian society. So if you were a farmer and you had 400 acres of land, you were a wealthier farmer than somebody who generally had 100 acres of land. Now, if you own 60 acres of land, you get punished for owning that land. So, you know, as time has changed and our economy has really shifted, we haven't shifted how we collect those local taxes. And the one thing I think is always important to point out is at the state level, we do not levy property taxes. We do not increase property taxes. We do nothing with property taxes. Those are local taxes, and the big one we always hear about really is our school district property taxes, and that's what we have been working on, and that's what we have some solutions for that we're going to do, you know, further that discussion for the next half hour.
Well, this issue has been discussed for decades. So what has made the problem so difficult? Why is it so hard to come to a solution and get those votes in the House that you need and the votes in the Senate and the governor's signature?
I think the biggest issue is it's not necessarily a statewide issue. right? So, I mean, we could talk about the costing out study. You can talk about how reassessment processes in some areas that haven't done them in very long. And I talked to some of my colleagues in Harrisburg, and in their districts, a property tax bill of $700 a year is high. Where in our districts, there's nobody that's paying that much.
Right.
And so it's such a different dynamic in what, say, folks in Potter County and Erie County or Philadelphia County, which doesn't really necessarily levy a school tax. They pay a city tax, and then the city funds a school district. So because of those dynamics and working on solutions, and we've all talked about House Bill 76, which we've all voted for, but you know, trying to garner the votes for that across the state, because it's a tax shift. And when you have a tax shift, you have winners and you have people. So you have people are going to be paying less and people are going to be paying more. So we need to come up with a balanced approach. How can we give those homeowners a relief? And that's what I think what we're working on right now. And we've proven last session that we can get a bill like that passed. For the first time ever, I think, in the State House, we passed House Bill 504, and we all worked on that last session, which would have actually given homeowners and property owners about a 50% reduction in property taxes. So the fact that we've proven that we can get something passed in the House gives us that you know, motivation to go forward and hopefully get this, for once and for all, get some relief to our homeowners.
And you did mention that it is the school property tax that seems to be the largest burden. Schools do get money from the state, but there's a funding formula involved in that, and there's differences from district to district of how much state money each school gets. Representative Brown, can you talk about that funding formula? Maybe not in real specifics, but in general terms, how it works, and does it work for the whole state well or not?
Yeah, and when you look at school taxes, as we're saying, and trying to really hone in on that, you have to look at there's many pieces of this issue. So as was mentioned, you know, you have state funding, you have federal funding, and then you have your local school property taxes. Those are how we fund our schools and our education for our children. So it's a very important revenue piece that we need to make sure we take care of the right way. So when you look at the amount that's given from the state for each school district, you know, we approve on a state budget the total dollars that we're going to give through basic education, which is K through 12. So K through 12 is our total. Now, I think we gave over $6 billion in this year's budget for basic education funding. That's a lot of money. But you look at it as a pizza pie. So you have a big pizza pie, you've given this total amount for basic education, but what's the slice of pizza that you get for each school district? You know, what does East Stroudsburg School District get in my area? What is Pocono Mountain? What is Pleasant Valley? So all these different districts, what do they get? And so when you have districts throughout the state getting 23%, 21%, some getting 40%, some getting 60%, based on a very convoluted formula, something's not right. And so now there has been a new formula that's been adjusted that we've had in the last two budgets, and that is for new money. That is, so we gave an extra $100 million this year for basic education. So that new money is distributed among the new formula, which tends to be more beneficial for areas where it wasn't working before. So, so for my area, I'd like to see the funding formula and some of those dollars that over the years really have been misdirected to be improved. But we're on the right track. It's very hard, I think, for the public that's watching to understand that you have, you know, 203 legislators in the House and you have 50 in the Senate. If you were a legislator and your school district was getting more money than it should have, you're fighting to keep that money. And if your school districts are getting less, of course, we're fighting to get what we deserve, which we should have. But to get the vote from someone, if you were a legislator and you're getting a great amount for your school districts, to get your vote, to give that money to another district, it's the right thing to do from a statewide perspective, but you're fighting for your people. So it's a battle. It's a battle, and we're trying to really figure out a way to get this, to get the votes, and to make the funding formula as fair as possible for all the dollars.
I think one of the things that we always fail to mention, and this was before any of us were here, they put hold harmless in the funding formula. So school districts would not get less than they got the year before. So in areas where their population wasn't growing, their school districts weren't getting more pupils, they were getting the same amount of money. And in our school districts where we're seeing an increase, it really hurt them and set them back. And as Representative Brown said, to get those votes from the members who are benefiting from that is a difficult thing to do.
Representative Hahn, can you talk about what the voters did when they went to the ballot I guess twice they've gone to the ballot and approved a measure. Can you talk about what that measure does?
Sure, we just passed the referendum. So we had to do a constitutional change. It had to pass 2 sessions, and we had to change it from a 50% reduction for the assessment to 100%. And we did it on homestead, farmstead, so that we can now come up with the funding to, and as Representative Heffley said, we need to have the amount there, what's the word I'm looking for the assessment? Exchange for dollar for dollar for the taxes. So that's something that we need to make sure that we're going to have the dollars, because we're looking at $14 billion to replace. So when we're talking about a tax shift to replace that, we need to come up with something. So instead of giving a 50% reduction in the assessment, we're now giving 100%, so that you will see a zero balance on your property tax bill.
So the voters basically allowed for this change to be made to eliminate the property tax. That does not mean the property tax has been eliminated.
Right, we needed
correct?
enabling legislation to follow that.
To allow for just residential and not have to do the commercial piece of it. But I think if you go back to some of the basics of, the local control piece of what we're really trying to do, because it has become such an issue, is, as Representative Heffley said, for people to understand that the school tax is levied completely at the local level by the school boards. We have no power, we have nothing to do with that. So if they raise them or lower them, that's completely the power of when the public elects a school board.
Sure.
So because we're not seeing what we need to see for the level of taxation that we want for our people, we'd like that to be a lower taxation level. We're looking at changing the whole system, changing it from your school taxes being based on the value of your home to being shifted, as what was mentioned, shifted to a personal income tax or a sales tax for that exchange for not having any school tax bill. So we have to get the money somehow.
Sure.
We have to get it somehow, but switching it to a whole new system is what we're really trying to do from the state level, because otherwise at that point we have no power.
Yeah, and that's the big issue. Is like I said earlier, it's a tax shift. So what we did was we worked years on House Bill 76. We had it up for votes, and one of the things we always got was a lot of pushback from the business community. They didn't want taxes on different things, and they liked the system the way it is, while we heard a lot from homeowners. So what we did with the constitutional amendment was to allow up to 100% for homeowners to get that relief. Now, there's still going to be a lot of other things in place, but what we really want to do is get the homeowners the relief that they need, because we're seeing the impacts on our communities when seniors can't sell homes because of high taxes, and young families don't want to move in, and seniors are having a hard time to stay in their home. But then at the same time, when they try to sell it, they're losing value because of the high taxes. So this
on
proposal,
a home that they may have owned outright for
years,
decades.
Because it's not an equitable tax. It's not based on anybody's ability to pay. And what we're looking to do is shift that off the homeowners onto an ability to pay. And that's, I think, what we're going to be discussing as we move forward in the program.
Yeah, and this is a good place to stop. Before we get into the proposal that you guys have offered, let's take a quick break, and legislative report will return in just a moment.
Did you know that Fort Indiantown Gap, located in Lebanon County, is home to Pennsylvania's only Veterans Memorial? C.J. Frederick of Westchester, Bucks County, submitted the winning design that now honors those men and women who have sacrificed their lives in defending this great country. Dedicated to the Commonwealth on October 7, 2001, the Veterans Memorial is surrounded by freestanding walls and houses an amphitheater, which can accommodate large crowds during an event. Strategically placed in the front of the amphitheater is a tomb that reminds visitors of those who gave their lives protecting the freedoms of this nation. The design suggests a war-damaged structure in which Frederick wanted to impress upon those visiting the horrific arena of war. Now you know.
And welcome back to the program. We're discussing property tax reform with state representatives Rosemary Brown, Marcia Hahn, and Doyle Heffley. And welcome back to you all.
Thank you.
When we left, we're getting ready to talk about a proposal that you folks have. But before we do that, I imagine many constituents come to you and say, what about the casino money? Where is that money? I thought we were supposed to get property tax relief from that. Representative Heffley?
The Casino Act of 2004 was sold to the public as property tax relief. It was going to be this, end-all, be-all. Currently, we collect through, and it's important to know that it's only the slot revenue that goes to property tax relief, and we collect about $700 million a year through that revenue to go to property tax relief. And if you look at your property tax bill, there's generally a line on there that shows that homestead reduction in there. But we collect $700 million a year, but it's important to point out that across the state, through property taxes to fund school districts at the local level, we collect $14 billion. So it was sold as a bill of goods, but there was no way that $700 million was ever going to replace $14 billion. So it does go to that, but it could never be enough
And that
to fund that.
that measure predated the times that
Yeah,
you
that
all
was
were members
all
of the
before
House.
we came into office.
Yes. And what about House Bill 76? That's another proposal we hear a lot about, and it's one we've heard about for a long time now. Representative Brown?
Right, so House Bill 76, Senate Bill 76 is really, again, a proposal that's been around. It's had a lot of push behind it, and there have been votes taken on it. So for the viewers that are watching, what it did was it increased the sales tax from 6% to 7% and expanded it out to other products and services in order to raise, as Representative Heffley said, about $14 billion. So it was a very large amount to raise and to be able to do the tax switch to eliminate school property taxes eventually. You would still have your local capital debt and things like that that would stay within the local area. So back in 2013, actually, the House did take a vote on 76 language. It was attached to another bill, which was House Bill 1189, which was a property tax proposal. And it was put on as an amendment. So basically, it would say, okay, no more House Bill 1189, let's take that out and let's put in the 76 language. And the bill by itself, not as an amendment, had 89 sponsors, co-sponsors supporting the measure from House members out of the 203. But when we took a vote on the actual amendment of the wording of 76, we only got 59 votes. I had to look at my notes there, 59 votes. So there was right away a discrepancy on the people that supported it and then also the people that actually voted for it. So we didn't have anywhere near the votes that we needed to get that measure passed through the House. And then in 2015, Senate Bill 76 was voted on in the Senate, and they had 24 yeas and 24 nays. And when you have a tie in the Senate, the lieutenant governor breaks that tie, and the lieutenant governor at that time voted no. And so Senate Bill 76 failed at that time. So it continues to be a push, and I know I usually only speak for myself, but I know all of us on this panel today support Senate Bill 76, and we would vote for that, and we try to do everything we can with that. But because of the voting situation and trying to get the votes from the other Senate members and the House members, we are trying to come up with other proposals that will help our at least primary homeowners and people stay in their homes and enjoy living in our areas.
Well, let's move to that proposal. Representative Hahn, House Bill 2329 is your proposal that will amend Act 1 and will allow for complete elimination of school property tax.
So we talked about a proposal that we could do, and there's a lot of proposals out there. And I think one of the things that concerns a lot of us that are voting for these, people are going to see it as increasing taxes. So nobody wants to do that, and we talked about it before that it's going to be a tax shift. So I think by starting with, and what we're going to start with is raise the PIT, the personal income tax, because that's the next most stable after property tax. As wages go up, your personal income tax will then go up and be able to fund that. So if we do it on the homestead farmstead exclusion, This isn't going to take in commercial at this point, but we felt we have to start somewhere. So let's start with the homestead farmstead. We need about $8 billion to cover that. This will raise the personal income tax by 1.89%, which is already at 3.07, so it's going to be 4.96.
right below 5.
We are just under 5. So you know, that's what we're looking at to do, so that we can use dollar for dollar exchange for the property tax. So we'll start collecting that if we can get this passed this session, which we're working on. And I have to say, Representative Heffley and all of us have been on a panel. He co-chaired a task force in the House with the Republican caucus to come up with solutions. So again, some people want sales tax and PIT, some want plain PIT. Rosemary and I co-sponsored this as one of the proposals. So we're not opposed to working with someone else and to looking at amendments, but we needed to start somewhere. So we introduced this legislation, increase the PIT, collect it starting in January, so that money can go into an account just for the personal property tax. And then the school districts in August will go to the department and say, this is what we receive from the state for or this is what we need for our schools. This is the amount of property tax that we collect, and then exchange dollar for dollar from the account that we're collecting.
Okay, so while the money is raised locally, it does go to Harrisburg, but it comes back at the same level, basically.
At the same level.
Okay.
So now it's not going to affect the personal property. You know, one of the other things we wanted to make sure is that there's an adjustment in there, so that, you know, we went on the high side when we raised it to 1.89, because we wanted to make sure that we're not going to have to come back and look at this for a long time.
Sure.
You know, once we have that. So people will still get their property tax bill. So your tax bill will come in, they'll see the reduction of the tax from the casino money, that'll be taken out, and then the homestead farmstead will be on there, and the property owner will see a zero balance on their tax bill because of the money that we're collecting.
And I believe currently our state income tax is fairly low as it compares to other surrounding states. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah,
So
we're still below, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that and this proposal is a great proposal. Last session, we proved in the House that we could get a bill passed, which was at that time 504, which looked at a PIT and a sales tax to drive down property taxes. I think with the voters speaking last November, I think it was 54% of Pennsylvanians. But like, what's amazing about that is in Carbon County, I think it passed with over 72% of the folks in Carbon County voted for that. But statewide, it was 54%, which is a little bit more narrow when you look at the amount of people that really want to get rid of and these are just homeowner property taxes. So that's what we deal with. How do we get this? And I think this, proven that we could do this. The voters have spoken that they want this relief. So I think that gives us extra, an extra drive into this to try to drive down. I think the goal of all of us at this table, and I know that goal, is total property tax elimination. Like House Bill 76 will work. It would fund our schools and it would totally eliminate property taxes. But we explained where we are at the votes. So now we're going to take every approach we can get, because I want to be able to, and we all want to be able to deliver for the people that we represent and the people across the state that are struggling with their property taxes. This proposal will shift that property taxes to an equitable tax. It's based on your income. So if somebody has a really good job and maybe they lose that job, the company folds. You've seen a lot of that after 2008. Well, maybe they lost that income, but yet their property taxes they still had to be paid to stay in that house.
And probably went up every year as well.
And it wasn't equitable. I will say that my colleagues at this table, Rosemary and Marcia, we all voted this year on a general fund budget which increased overall education spending to $12.3 billion, the highest level ever in the state of Pennsylvania. So the state is making those investments. But what we want to do now is take that burden off of the homeowners, and this is one more proposal that can get us where we need to be. So our homeowners, our senior citizens, our young families, and everybody it's going to shift it to a more equitable tax. I like the PIT. I also think an element of the sales tax could be part of that discussion as we continue to move forward. But I really commend Marcia and Rosemary on the work that they put forth.
The one problem with the sales tax, and we saw that with 76, so you want to expand the sales tax. You need to do that to get enough. And if you wanted to expand sales tax only, we'd have to go to 11%. but then all the interest groups come in. So
Well, not on this. Don't tax
no,
this.
you're
Right,
right.
yeah.
So, don't tax services, don't tax, a lot of the different things. So as they start dropping off, so does the income or the money that you have to put on property tax. So that's why, again, with the PIT, it's a more stable tax that we can do. I think the one thing that we hear also is, well, renters don't pay property tax. Well, they do. It's in their rent. So, they do contribute to that. Some people like the sales tax because they think people say they don't have any money, but they're out spending. So that's why some people like the sales tax. But if your income, like Doyle said, if you lose your job, then your spending is less. So this proposal, goes on your income. If you have income, you're paying more. You don't pay your property tax. You have all that money that you can then put back into the economy or save it, but hopefully put some back into the economy. We sell more houses. So, it just seems like a good all-around plan. And I know Senator Scavello has a companion bill in the Senate, so they're looking at that as well. So we're hoping to get something out, by the end of session. But with limited days left in session, I don't know if we're going to get it done, but, something
You'll
that
keep
we really
pushing,
need
for
to push
sure.
for next session if we can.
And I think one point about this bill is it is for homeowners, the property tax, but it also puts everything is still in place. So the school districts or local government, they're not just going to be able to go out and increase property taxes on business owners and those commercial properties.
Right.
They cannot shift any of those dollars cannot go to homestead relief. They can't increase, business taxes and go to homestead relief. So and they still would have all of the indexes that they couldn't go above the rate of inflation for any type of increases on businesses or commercial properties. So
Right.
we're not just saying, oh, we're just going to, tax the businesses. This is a very well thought out proposal, and I really commend
And
Representative
the
Hahn.
school districts will still have to go to the referendum if they want to go over that
index.
rate of, the index and the
Okay.
rate of inflation. So.
And I think the point is too with the local boards that you're saying is we really need the support of our local school board officials in this backing of trying to change a system that will work for the people as much as it will work for the school districts. So we're just as concerned that everything is stable with the school districts and that it's funded correctly and that things work very well. But we need our local officials to help support us and back us with this, and that's something that the people need to understand as well.
We just have about 1 minute left. So I don't know who wants to tackle this, and it's kind of a broad question, but how do you work to overcome the differences that exist around the state and convince that member who's in a district where property taxes aren't a problem? How do you do that?
This is why we've been working on it for 40 plus years, because we can't get that consensus. And even on our side, I think, we all have, as I'm talking to members, some like the property tax, some like the sales tax and the PIT, someone all sales. So I think we just have to keep talking about it and working it through and hopefully get the consensus.
I think the other important part is the map. If you show, hopefully we'll be able to display the map at the end of the program or at some point to show the map of who voted. If there were areas in this state with that amendment for homestead relief that voted against it. So I think so then when you look at that overall discussion, that's what we're dealing with, because we need 102 members in the House, we need 26 senators, and we need a governor that's going to sign it in order to get that relief for our homeowners.
Well, thank you all for working on this issue and coming at it from different angles just to get the ball across the goal line, and I appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you.
Yes, and that's all the time we have for today's program. If you need assistance with any state government matter, please feel free to contact your representative at their local office or through their website and Facebook pages. And that information for all three will be shown in just a moment. Thanks for watching, and please join me next time for Legislative Report.